the music right there. That is going to be the intro for Kevin Scholla. He's a new member to the game here, to the family. A Eddie Burke Show contributor, and this is his debut. Kevin Scholla is the host of the Palin Update on Sarah Net Radio and a columnist for Breitbart News. He is a professional sports anchor, a reporter, and announcer. Kevin, welcome to your debut.
Hey, Eddie, thanks for having me. Really a pleasure to be working with you here on a more regular basis.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Hey, tell us a little bit about who Kevin Scholla is, so the audience will know.
I tell you what, like you said, I've been professionally covering sports for years now. I guess 99 was my first professional debut there. I anchor, I report, I announce. I'm at the ballparks. I'm in the locker rooms. I'm courtside. All that good stuff. So love sports. That's a lot of fun. A lot of fun to get up and go to work. That's for sure, for the real job, quote unquote. And then, of course, been writing for Breitbart now for a little while with the sports section there. And then, of course, Palin Update on Sarah Net Radio, which is our weekly program dedicated to Governor Palin. We have a great guest every week. We recap the week in news with Governor Palin, what she's been up to. And then we have commentary every week from Susan Stimson and Sarah Steelman. So the Palin Update with Kevin Scholla on Sarah Net Radio, and that's at sarahnetradio.net. And you can always check us out on Twitter, at Kevin Scholla and at Sarah Net Radio. So as far as me, Eddie, always been kind of an East Coast guy. I've only lived in the New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago area, so as you can imagine, I've only seen lunatics elected to office. And that has that's another reason why Sarah Palin is so appealing and someone really to fight for. Not to mention that I have my two young children and my daughter especially. I want leaders like Sarah Palin out there for them to be able to look up to as they grow up, because as you know, our country's in a real crossroads right now.
I don't know if you had an opportunity to listen online prior to our coming on, but I was talking about you, and I was talking about we were going to discuss CPAC because were you there? You were there, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
so you were there, kind of holding down the fort, reporting, analyzing all. It seemed to me from an observer far away, looking at the coverage that the news media brought, and that was that they highlighted the differences. You had Chris Christie come, since you were there, you can really give us the details. Had Chris Christie come on there and says, it's one thing to support your ideas, and I know I'm kind of paraphrasing, and your priorities and your ideals and your principles, but then we still want to get elected. Now, you and I know that that's code for, well, I'm kind of a liberal Republican, and therefore, since I'm a liberal Republican and you're just crazy right-wing conservatives, if you keep with your principles, we're going to lose. But if you come over here to me, we're going to win. First question, am I correct in what he tried to present? And then secondly, how do you think the crowd really absorbed that?
Well, and what does winning mean, right? I mean, if someone, let's play devil's advocate here and give Chris Christie the benefit of the doubt and say, let's pretend he's correct, especially in a blue state. Well, what does winning mean? You win the election and you get elected and you have an R next to your name? Doesn't mean you're going to accomplish the things that a true conservative or a traditional American would want you to accomplish. It just means that the person with the R instead of the D wins, said election and they're in, so you have, a little less worse than horrible. That's not what we're looking for. And that's what you got to like about Governor Palin. She's starting to roll out the endorsements now, and she doesn't go necessarily for the person who is in front. She sometimes doesn't go for the person who's ultimately going to win, but she goes for the best person that she finds to be the best candidate out there. So that's what we need to go back to. But the contrast was stark at CPAC, Eddie. I mean, you forget about Christie. Anybody else besides Palin, the ballroom was somewhat filled or a little filled, or maybe, you had some others who had some juice to them, but Ben Carson, Rand Paul, they definitely had some people there who were fired up. But other than that, you had a lot going on otherwise. You had a speaker, and, a bunch of people were on Radio Row, a bunch of people were talking outside of the ballrooms, and half the time you'd hear someone say, "Oh, who's on now?" Not even in tune. When Governor Palin spoke, it was a ghost town in the rest of that hotel. Everybody was in there wanting to hear what she would say. That was definitely the main draw for 3 years in a row, and that's pretty amazing. And that shows who the leader of this certainly Tea Party and conservative and common sense movement is.
I was talking earlier, again, before you came on, I was saying we've tried this moderate thing. We've tried it. We're always, conservatives are always told, oh, you need to set aside your principles and your priorities and go over here with the center guy, and get along with McCain, and then we tried Romney. It doesn't work. I mean, they keep saying it's going to work. They keep telling us, right-wingers, us Tea Party folks, so we need to sit down and just behave ourselves and shut up, and the establishment knows best. But Romney didn't win. McCain didn't win. That's 2 elections in a row. They had their chance. We listened to them. We all got in the wagon. We did what we were behaved. We did what we're told. They didn't win.
No, they didn't, and that's the reason they didn't win, too. It's one thing to vote for someone. It's another thing to energetically support somebody. And I think that most people, even most conservatives, did vote for McCain and did vote for Romney because had Barack Obama as the other choice. But did they go out and knock on doors? Did they go out and tell everybody they know? Did they send emails every day? Did they send money in? Probably not, because they weren't excited about the candidate they were voting for. They just didn't like the candidate they were voting against. And you nailed it. You need opposites. You need those bold colors, not the pale pastels. And somebody who is like a Governor Palin is an opposite of what we see right now.
I don't want earth tones. Yeah, I don't need any earth tones, man. I need red, white, and blue, baby.
Yeah, we had the earth tones. I guess that was the 2000, right? Al Gore's campaign was the earth tones. Yeah, but I'd say, you look at Palin's CPAC speech, imagine that type of talk in a presidential debate or on the campaign trail, instead of, how McCain always prefaced everything with pretty much like, hey, I'm good and so's Obama, but vote for me.
Yeah.
And then Romney had his one shining moment and thought that he won the fight in the first round and then backed off the rest of the way.
Yeah.
He went away from everything else. He kept people, true conservatives, away from the convention. Look at Palin. I mean, she, in this CPAC speech, could you imagine that up on a stage against Hillary or whoever they're going to roll out in the election in 2016 or what have you? And whether it's Governor Palin herself or not, just anyone to speak like that is what resonates with the people. And not only does she go after the John Kerrys and Hillary Clintons and Barack Obamas of the world, but she goes after Republicans who are not doing their job. And then to not put a negative spin on things, she also rattled off a bunch of names of the people who are doing a good job in Washington, like Paul Gosar in Arizona, for example. So, that's, I think, what people would really want to hear. Talk like how we talk in our homes and to each other, because this political speak and teleprompter nonsense is really old.
It really is, and it was such a refreshing. We'll move on here, but I remember when she was having her debut in front of the world, essentially when she was with McCain at the Republican the RNC, and she was there. She came out on stage, and it's the famous, the lipstick pit bull with the lipstick on. That was that speech, and so. And I was sitting in a home with all of her staff, not the commissioners and all, but the grassroots staff, her chief of staff and Frank Bailey and all. I know there's been a separation there, but all of us were in this home together, and the people that worked on her campaign, and we were sitting there watching, and it was just unbelievable how she captured the crowd. And it was amazing the way that all of a sudden the polls changed for McCain. They went up, 6-7 points, something like that, and he was leading until, I was discussing earlier, he went back and gave all the bailouts out, and he was in charge of that, and so therefore, and then after that, guess what? He became the moderate who he really is, and he went on board with all that, and then guess what? He dropped in the polls. And it was and Sarah Palin was having him in the lead until he went back to Washington, D.C. and did that. But if you want to comment on that, that's great. But if not, well, tell us anything else that happened that really caught your attention down there. Give us some updates that maybe we didn't hear on the mainstream media.
Well, and quickly to what you just referenced, I think they also.
Hey, you know what? You know what, Kevin?
Yeah.
Let's take a break. Let me take a break and then save that. And that's a good tease. People need to stick around for that. Kevin Scholla will be back. I am saying your last name correctly, Scholla, right?
You got it now, Eddie.
Yeah, Scholla, yeah, exactly. So we'll be right back with Kevin Scholla. America with Kevin Scholla. All right, welcome back. 6:48 here in the beautiful state of Anchorage, Alaska. Kevin Scholla is my guest, all the way from the East Coast. Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Eddie.
Thank you so much. So going back to what we were saying, anything else that came up in the CPAC? We were just joking about this off the air that I said that. Anything else happened that we should be have attention? Maybe we didn't catch it on the mainstream media.
Well, I think that the reaction to Governor Palin across the board from attendees and even at least, as far as what they're saying publicly from other speakers was just really through the roof. People were very impressed with her, and, you couldn't find anybody who wasn't excited about her being there. So I think that really stood out. And there was also it's just nice, these events, sometimes to be able to speak to people who really feel the same way of what's obviously happening right in front of our eyes right now due to the poor decisions being made in Washington. Because sometimes, you feel like, wait a minute, you see this media coverage, you see, Obama and all of his policies in your face, these healthcare commercials, you start to say, wait a minute, are we the ones here? But you get there and you see a lot of common sense and a lot of logic, and that's a good feeling.
Kevin, what do we need to do? How are we going, is there any talk? I know when you're I've been to those conferences before when people, we're just political people, man. We're just like, we can't help ourselves. We're sitting in the hallways talking about politics. We're in the chairs talking about politics. We're back at the hotel room talking about politics. And you hear so many great minds. They're all there together. And how are we going to not split up the vote to where Chris Christie wins? Because that's what happens. You're going to have Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, whoever, all in the hat there, and then you're going to have Mr. Liberal Republican, Chris Christie, and he's going to walk away with the thing because we're all splitting the vote up, just like with Romney and McCain. And
remember, it's not just Christie. You could get Jeb Bush, too.
That's true.
In a lot of ways, is worse because Hillary, if she were the nominee, they're buddies, it would be a kind of a nice kissy-kiss deal with those two while she's winning by 12 points, and he'd go right along with it to not offend or what have you. I think a lot of it just has to do with not being afraid to call people out every step of the way. A little bit of what we spoke about again, that plain English. And also, I think something that Governor Palin has pointed out, and I couldn't agree more, is you have to infiltrate pop culture. You have to be involved in music and sports and TV in all these things that a lot of classic conservatives or Republicans kind of just shy away from. That shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to get right in there with it, kind of like how Bristol was on Dancing with the Stars, kind of how Governor Palin does these television programs or references sports so much. And that's a good thing, instead of trying to say, oh, well, Hollywood has taken over all of those things, so we'll just back down and, hide out in our homes and churches and whatnot. That's not the way to go. I think that conservatives need to be out there speaking to everyone of every age, of every color, of every background, and getting the message out there, because anyone with half a brain will see that is the common sense, logical answer to things. And also, it will help to have Barack Obama not as the candidate, because there's a lot of Kool-Aid there. There's a lot of people who voted for this guy because, Beyonce came to them in a dream and told them to do so.
Hey, what about the interview with him and the comedian the other day on his Between Two Ferns, and the guy's name's so hard to pronounce, I'm not even going to try it. I did
Galifianakis.
Galifianakis, there we go. And my producer, Mr. Chris, who is the most brilliant person in the room, he knows. So, what do you think about that?
It's funny that he mentioned Galifianakis, because my producer on the Palin update was Zach Galifianakis for Halloween 2 years ago. He pasted on a beard. So, very, very interesting reference. What do I think about that is that this guy, the president, it's all about this image and this media situation. I mean, look how many times he's been on Letterman and the Late Shows and whatnot. You know, that used to be a big deal when Nixon would sock it to me, or when Bill Clinton played the saxophone on Arsenio Hall. Now you have a guy who does this more than he does any type of hard-hitting news. You wouldn't see him ever go talk to Sean Hannity or go talk to anybody like me, but he would talk to, Oprah and every other late night or daytime TV show. So this is what it's a part of. This is a celebrity, running in office when he's not golfing. And Michelle, the First Lady, it's the same deal, out and about telling me how many sandwiches and Pepsis I can have, but at the same time going on these vacations while some people, can't put food on the table. So
go ahead.
It's not surprising, but it's pretty sad.
It is interesting how the optics of that. I understand that each president, they travel, each president does, and I don't have a list here in front of me how many vacation days this one took versus the other one took and all. And so, I try to kind of sift through the weeds a little bit on the whole thing. But it does seem like in this time, when people are losing their homes by just significant measures and all, and the unemployment rate is significantly higher than what the actual report says. People are struggling around the country, and they just continue to go on these vacations, and she buys a $12,000 dress. Why do that? Why spend that money on that dress? It's not that no one's going to hold it against you if you don't have a $12,000 dress. It's the guy who lies about going to college that matters. Nobody really cared that he didn't go to college, but when you lie about going to college, that just makes it worse. And so I don't get it. I don't understand how they can just fly around the world. You have any suggestion? You have any opinion on that? How they can do this and somehow they think it's okay?
It's just really bad taste, too. I mean, they show the picture of the dogs in the White House with all this, fancy china and whatnot at a time when other people, are working 4 or 5 jobs just to make ends meet. And you just continue to see this. And the hypocrisy is also what gets you, Eddie, because, George W. Bush, forget about vacations. He couldn't even go out for a bike ride, and people would say, how dare he worry about that when we have these wars going on, blah, blah, blah. Meantime, bike ride. This guy's golfing and basketball and on vacations all the time. Same with the First Lady, and it's thrown out into the face of the American people, and it's embraced by the media, the mainstream media is embracing it and just looking at them as this like jet-setting couple, as if you're following Brad and Angelina instead of the leaders of the country. So it's in poor taste, but it's that arrogance. I mean, look, this is a guy, remember, who, when they honor Rosa Parks, what does he do? He puts out a picture of himself. When they honor we land on the moon, it's a picture of him looking at the moon instead of the brave astronauts. I mean, what is going on? I'm waiting for next Christmas. It'll be him in a beard and a red suit instead of the fat dude.
With pillars, Yeah. The whole pillars and everything behind.
Hollywood pillars, right?
The parting of the seas, Sarah said. He's going to rise the oceans or whatever. I can't remember exactly what she said, but that was one of the highlights that kept spinning on the news. Hey, taking your advice, that's what I do here. I talk about pop culture and sports. Kobe Bryant not going to be back for the end of the season. That was probably, I think, very well known. I didn't need anybody to tell me that. I think most of us were thinking he should just take the rest of the season off. Also, what's going on in sports there real quick? I got about a minute left.
Well, I'm happy my DePaul Blue Demons shocked everybody, won a Big East game last night, upsetting Georgetown, so that was fun. They'll move on against Creighton tonight, but I guess the big news right now is the NFL free agency. A lot of top guys available, and already there's been a lot of people changing teams. Decker left Denver late last night. That broke and went to the New York Jets. You see Ware going to the Broncos from Dallas. and then you have a lot of other big names who are available. Julius Peppers let go by the Bears. The Buccaneers brought in Josh McCown, and Lovie Smith already saying he's the starter before he's even come in and had any practice with them. So that's what everybody's kind of watching now. It's funny, Eddie. We're getting ready for baseball, and the NHL and NBA are heading toward the playoffs, and yet the NFL a lot of times is still on the front page. It's a year-round game now, that's for sure.
Yeah. Who do you out there think that? I mean, what do you see in basketball as far as those who are going to maybe end up in the final? I mean, you got to think about Indiana. You got to think about the Heat. The Pacers, I think, had the best. What do they have? The best. Is that right, Chris? They got the best league and the best scores or the best stats in the league right now.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think to the East.
Who cares about the East?
I think they have them. They might be tied in the loss column with Miami, but yeah, they have a couple more wins. But yeah, unfortunately in the East, that should be the two for sure. I mean, the Bulls and Nets might give them a rough time, but not anything where they'd upset them. You wouldn't think. And the West is open. There's a few good teams.
Is there any hope for the Lakers? No.
No hope for the Lakers. But you know what, Eddie? Some small hope for the Senate. Sarah Palin's endorsed two people, Shannon in Oklahoma and Sass in Nebraska. So a couple of guys to look at. One is an Obamacare nemesis, so that's always a good thing.
All right, thank you. Kevin Scholla is my guest. He will be my guest every Thursday about the same time, same place. Thanks for your debut. A pleasure to have you on today, Kevin, and we really appreciate it. Bye.